The air is cold and the ground is frozen, covered in snow deep enough to where it comes up to the kneecaps of Al, who trenches through it while pulling behind him a makeshift sled with Jasmine and Alex unconscious laying upon it, while carrying Vince on his shoulders. Al carries the team, who is now all unconscious, through the snow as he can only look down at his legs, focusing on not passing out due to the blood loss from his torn open chest, his slashed arms and busted legs, and while ignoring the pain, all Al can think about is getting his friends to safety. And when he looks up, he wonders how long he had been looking down, for upon looking up, he stares directly into the eyes of the chief, who stands before him, only smiling.
So, it would appear you guys are making it to the end,
says the chief, with Al not knowing what this means nor caring. He drops the ropes to the makeshift sled and throws Vince off his shoulders to the side as he reaches behind him and pulls his revolver out from his belt and pulls the hammer back, pointing it at the chief. The chief's smile only grows, with Al glaring into the eyes of the chief.
Well, Al, do you actually think you're gonna fight me? Do you believe that's a good idea?
Says the chief, with Al not responding nor caring to. He is fully aware of the chief's power, the fact that he can take out even the likes of Vince and destroy buildings and cities with his bare hands. But what other choice does Al possibly have? And so, Al pulls the trigger, with the hammer flying forward and the gun going off, with the bullet flying towards the chief. It is time for Al to either die or win by some miracle. Hello, my random viewers, and welcome to Randomly Offensive. Today we will be continuing the story of Genetic Blessings in Part 2, Chapter 4. And if you're thinking you missed previous episodes due to the beginning of this episode, you very well might have, or you didn't miss anything because that's not the beginning of the video. This is the beginning of the video, and to understand what just happened, we are going to go back 6 hours to explain what the hell is going on. So, with that said, and without further ado, let's continue Genetic Blessings in Part 2, Chapter 4. Jasmine and Al sit in the kitchen of Vince's hideout, watching Alex prepare breakfast like she does every morning, and gently sets Vince's plate down at the head of the table with a pack of smokes and a cigarette sticking halfway out of the pack, with a lighter to the left of it. As Vince walks in, he does his usual as he sits down with one sweep of the hand, grabbing the cigarette and the lighter, and lighting the cigarette and smoking through it before beginning to eat the meal. As Alex, Jasmine, and Al all eat and finish by the time Vince just begins, Vince looks at Al.
So, has that leg of yours finally healed up? I feel like we've been hiding away long enough, and if I'm being completely honest, I'm sure the chief has climbed even higher in the political ranks,
says Vince, with Al nodding his head and knocking his left knee with his knuckles. Yeah, it's pretty healed up. I mean, I think it's gonna get as good as ever. A little bit of pain here and then, but for the most part, it's pretty good, says Al, with Vince nodding in approval as he begins cutting into his eggs with his fork.
Very well. We're going to start looking for those pieces of Excalibur so that maybe we can finally get our hands on the God Orb,
says Vince. However, before he even has time to finish, the four of them begin to vanish as Vince notices Alex, Al, and Jasmine vanishing, and then himself slowly beginning to vanish. He throws the fork down on the plate, frustrated.
Never mind. It seems someone else is getting impatient,
says Vince as they all leave the hideout empty and appear once again in the gold and white temple, in the large empty room surrounded by nothing but pillars and empty tables, except for one table that the Guardian, the weird man, sits at with a large glass of a red liquid, with his plate being full of an odd, uncooked lump of meat that has a rank smell, a unusual, peculiarly disgusting smell coming from it. And as Al smells and looks at the meal, he looks at the man concerned. What on earth are you eating? Says Al, with the man looking up annoyed as he inserts a piece of the meat into his mouth, chews and swallows.
Fuck you, that's what?
Responds the man, with Al scratching his head. Well, no need to be mean, I was just curious what you're eating.
And I don't want to tell you,
responds the man, with Vince pushing Al to the side.
Okay, why have you summoned us once again?
Says Vince, with the man wiping the blood from the meat off his mouth.
Well, it's simple. Why have you not progressed in your tasks? Why is the Sword of Excalibur not lying before me?
Responds the man as he stares at Vince and the others, with Vince pointing to Al.
It was his fault. He's the reason we have not been efficient,
says Vince, with no further explanation, as Al gets annoyed at this out of context explanation. Well, hold on, my leg got smushed by a tree. It's not like I could just keep walking and go find Excalibur with a busted leg. And since you gave me and me alone all the coordinates to the pieces, they would not have been able to do it without me, says Al, with the man nodding yet not approving as his face becomes more annoyed.
I feel like there were ways around that. But very well, I will accept your excuse this one time. If you take any longer, or fail me again, then I will not allow you passage to the God Orb. We will get your damn sword, responds Vince as he cuts the man off. And the man becomes irritated and does not take it lightly, as he aggressively pushes the chair back and stands up from the table and limps to Vince as he drags his right leg behind him. Did you just raise your voice to me?
Did you just talk back to me? Says the man as he stares at Vince. And Vince, not knowing whether or not to be afraid or intimidated, only takes one step back as he locks eyes with the man.
Why? Should I be scared of you? Should I be intimidated by you? I raise my voice whenever I feel, and I talk back to whoever I please. Are you telling me that you deserve a different level of respect?
Says Vince, with Al, Jasmine, and Alex feeling the tension in the air, are afraid of what might come next. However, the man simply gives Vince a smirk. No, Vince. No, there's no reason to be scared of me or be intimidated. You are allowed to raise your voice and you are allowed to talk back. I am no authoritarian, just the guy, the only guy that can give you permission to attain the God Orb. So I assumed you'd be polite. Responds the man, with Vince looking down.
Very well. I apologize to you.
Responds Vince, though not meaning a word of it, just doing what is necessary. And everyone in the room can see the struggle Vince had to go through to simply say sorry. And with that, the man continues smirking as he snaps his fingers, and Vince, Jasmine, Al, and Alex return to the hideout in the kitchen.
Well, I suppose we should go look for that sword.
Right, says Al as he pokes himself in the forehead in the same spot that the man poked him almost a year ago, as he tries to find the coordinates that was given to him. And they are right there, as if he is a human GPS, though the locations of them have changed. They are no longer spread out, but instead in the same location, gathered together, and they seem to be moving at the pace that someone would walk. Well, that's not good, says Al, with Vince looking up.
What isn't good? Talk to me, Al,
says Vince, but Al simply just stares down, with Jasmine putting her hand on Al's shoulder. Hey, what's not good? She says. What happened? What's going on in that head, Al? Responds Jasmine, with Alex too getting concerned. Hey, you want to say something? Says Alex, with Vince seeing fear entering Al's eyes.
Alrighty, Al, you've got to share with the rest of the class what's going on.
With Al finally looking up, well, someone beat us to the punch, and you're not gonna like who it was, but I think it was the chief. I'm pretty sure it was the chief, but he's got someone with him, some dude covered in robes and garments, and then there's another dude next to him, says Al as he pokes his forehead once again.
Okay,
responds Vince.
Who is the other dude?
I have no idea, man, responds Al, but I know where they are. They are they're in they're in the Arctic.
Fantastic. That's great,
says Vince as he lights up a cigarette.
So, we are going to have to go to the one place I'm going to be useless. If I didn't know Alex would object, I'd suggest sitting this one out,
says Vince, with Alex looking at him. Excuse me, but no. No, you're not sitting this one out.
I know, Alex,
responds Vince.
I will join. Just know, if we run into the chief in a place where it is gonna be freezing cold, I will be no help to you, and our only options will be to run,
says Vince, with Al, Jasmine, and Alex nodding, and Jasmine is getting concerned. Maybe we should wait? Maybe we should wait until they go somewhere warmer. We actually could use your abilities, Vince. I don't know how good you're gonna be without your genetic blessing, says Jasmine, with Vince standing up, nodding his head, and exhaling a large cloud of smoke from his cigarette.
I would agree, but Al and Alex believe in the power of friendship, so let's go and retrieve the sword from these 3 genetic blessings. I am sure we'll find a way out of it. Al can think fast on his feet. He'll figure something out when the moment gets hot,
says Vince, with Al and Alex nodding their head, and Jasmine still thinking this is a bad idea. They go to Vince's jet and fly towards the coordinates where the chief and 2 other genetic blessings await in Alaska with the blade of Excalibur. While in the plane, Vince sits smoking the cigarette in his jet as Al, Alex, and Jasmine all sit looking at him. They each ponder their own questions. Okay, man, says Al. Does the chief know about Excalibur? How does the chief know about Excalibur? And does he know why we need it? Says Al, with Vince smoking his cigarette.
I do not know,
says Vince, with Jasmine also having her own thoughts. Okay, and just exactly why do we even need Excalibur? What role does it play in finding the God Orb?
I do not know.
And, resumes Al, does the chief know about the God Orb? Is he after it just like we are? And is that guardian, is that guy sending him on the same tasks, on the same missions to get the same things? Says Al, with Vince now getting irritated.
I do not know. I have no idea. I don't know any more than you guys.
I'm pretty sure they're just asking out loud, says Alex, with Vince shrugging his shoulders.
Regardless, if you ask it out loud, someone's gonna want to answer, and I want to answer, but I don't know. I have no idea why we are going after Excalibur. I don't know if the chief knows everything we know. I don't know if the chief knows about the God Orb, and I don't know why he has Excalibur.
Alright, says Vince, as he aggressively smokes on his cigarette. Al looks out the window to the jet, and they have entered Antarctica, and they're flying directly towards the coordinates, and Al can see the chief and the 2 other genetic blessings. Hey, Vince, buddy, hey, those are the guys, says Al, with Vince looking through the window, and Jasmine and Alex leaning over Al and Vince.
Holy shit,
says Vince as he quickly lumps the group together and forms a force field ball around Al, Alex, and Jasmine. And as he looks back at the window, he sees the chief pointing at the jet, and the man in the hooded garment simply walking away with the 3 pieces of Excalibur, and the other one is a genetic blessing covered in ice and frost, and forms a gigantic spear made out of ice and hurls it as hard as he can towards the jet.
Okay, here we go,
says Vince as he looks at the 3 in his force-filled ball that he had created for them.
You keep Alex safe,
says Vince, right as the spear hits the jet, and the jet begins twirling down as Vince dives out, covering himself with his force field, hoping that the ball he created, Jasmine, Al, and Alex, will protect them. As the jet falls in the distance, Vince hits the ground, tumbling and rolling through the snow, and as he rises, he sees Chief and the other genetic blessing covered in ice.
Okay, I'm assuming you're here to stop us from collecting Excalibur. I do not care how or why you know about it, but I'm going to have to receive it and protect my friends,
says Vince as he rises from the snow, and the chief simply looks at the frosted man.
He is all yours,
says the chief as he walks away.
Do make sure you get rid of Vince first. And if you have to, take out Al and Jasmine, whatever you do. Do not harm the little girl before Vince has been eradicated,
says the chief as he continues walking, with Vince looking at the frosted man.
Well, it seems like the fight between me and the old man will have to wait,
says Vince as he undoes his cufflinks and takes his blazer suit jacket off and folds it nicely, setting it down, with the frosted man smiling.
The name's Frost, says the man, and taken that you are the guardian type, there is no way you can beat me.
I can beat you just fine.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
Cannot.
Can too.
No.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like you're not taking this very seriously, Vince.
I'm not. I would be scared if you were scary, but I cannot take that voice very seriously. Not only that, but I feel like Jasmine and I have beaten you before, haven't we? I recognize you quite well. Though I'm impressed, it seems you have evolved,
says Vince as he rolls up the sleeves of his buttoned-up shirt.
I have. I went from a level 5 and I'm now a level 7. Damn near God tier.
Really?
Really?
God tier. Well, this should be exciting,
says Vince as he forms a force-field ball and throws it hard enough to cause the snow on the ground to split as it flies towards Frost. Meanwhile, with the plane crashed, Vince had managed to protect Jasmine, Al, and Alex from any danger with the force-field ball around them, as it didn't give out until after the impact, with Al grabbing Jasmine and Alex out of the wreckage. "You okay?" says Al, with Alex and Jasmine both nodding their heads, Yeah, but I feel like we gotta go save Vince. I don't think he's gonna... Yeah, how is he gonna beat an ice guy? Says Jasmine, with Alex nodding her head and frantically grabbing her things. Yeah, we gotta go help Vince. Hold on, responds Al as he's looking in the distance away from them, seeing the hooded man walking with the 3 pieces of Excalibur. Now, if I know Vince, he has the strength to get out of some pretty tight spots, and I'm pretty sure he recruited me due to my fast thinking on my feet. Vince is gonna want us to go after that guy, says Al, with Jasmine and Alex looking at each other. I thought we agreed no splitting up, says Alex, with Al looking back at Alex. Kid, I get the whole family thing, I do, trust me, I want us to stay together, but I think we need to just trust that Vince has got that genetic blessing. We need to get Excalibur now, or else that Guardian guy, he's not going to give us the opportunity again. Vince is continuously throwing his force-filled balls one after another with tremendous force at Frost. However, Frost has covered himself in solid ice, and though the balls land and connect with massive explosions upon impact, the ice protects Frost, and Frost is simply walking towards Vince.
Like I said, you cannot beat me,
says Frost, with Vince throwing one last ball and then tucking the collar on his shirt.
Very well. It would appear I'd have to use my brain.
That sounds like it would hurt. What are you gonna do? Headbutt me?
Retorts Frost, with Vince tucking the collar on his shirt.
No, I'm going to outsmart you, you loon,
says Vince as he forms another force-filled ball and sends it gently on the ground and rolls it towards Frost.
What's this?
It is a plan,
responds Vince as he forms another one and slowly rolls it towards Frost, and another one, followed by another one, and before Frost realizes it, there are force-filled balls scattered on the ground between him and Vince.
Is this supposed to stop me? I can step on him just fine.
Yeah, you can. And so can I,
says Vince as he forms his force field around his fists, and only his fists, creating the appearance of boxing gloves.
I see. You can turn your force field into inanimate objects. Very impressive, but I too have mastered that skill,
says Frost as he puts his hands out and uses ice coming from the palm of his hand to form a large sword.
Well, it would appear this is going to be a hell of a fight,
says Vince as he can feel his feet and legs beginning to get very cold, and he feels his energy already being zapped, but he cannot show the weakness that the cold is having on him. He has survived this long by bluffing and appearing invincible, and the second that image has been broken, Vince knows that he will only lose every battle after that, and so Vince charges in, dodging and stepping around every ball he had landed, while Frost charges towards Vince mindlessly stepping on the balls as they are exploding, causing snow to go into the sky and into the air, eventually blocking any visual he has on Vince. With Vince charging through the cloud of snow, he sees Frost swinging the blade towards him and ducks under it, delivering a right hook to the gut of Frost. And as soon as he feels the force-filled gloves wrapped around his hand, giving out due to the ice covering Frost's body, he slides his foot out and steps on a force-filled ball and absorbs it right into the glove, reforming it and giving it the strength it needs to push through the ice and connecting to the gut of Frost. He then rises and delivers a left hook to the jaw of Frost, doing the exact same thing as he throws punch after punch, with Frost dodging the ones he can and swinging the sword towards Vince. Vince manages to dodge every swing as he sidesteps and pivots and delivers jabs and hooks along with uppercuts, stepping on the force-filled balls to give him everything he needs. And within a connecting blow to the jaw of Frost, Vince grabs the hand that holds the ice blade and twists it around and throws Frost over his shoulder, slamming him into one of the force-filled balls, causing them all to explode in synchronization, sending Frost flying into the sky. And when Frost lands, he can feel broken bones, with Vince on his knee, hidden by Frost, by the snow in the air.
This isn't good. The cold is definitely having its
toll? It's taking its toll on you,
says Frost as he rises, walking towards Vince, seeing him kneeling down.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say,
says Vince as he forces himself to stand up, with Frost smiling and grabs the collar of Vince's shirt.
I told you you weren't gonna beat me. Not only can I absorb the very thing that you're helpless against, but we're in the coldest place in the world. You've always been confident, but I never realized you were stupid,
says Frost, with Vince now struggling to even retort. Frost delivers a massive punch with his fist covered in ice directly into the stomach of Vince, and then delivers another punch to the skull of Vince while still holding the collar.
I'm going to kill you,
says Frost, with Vince looking at him.
If you think you can.
I think I can,
says Frost, as he pulls Vince up once more and begins punching him in the face repeatedly over and over and over, while punching him in the stomach and in the face and kicking him in the knees. Vince remains standing as he can only receive the onslaught, and whenever he tries to block, it takes far too much energy and his arms move too slow, and Vince is finally knocked to the ground, with Frost getting on top of him, punching his face into the ground.
This is where Vince Caballero dies. And this is where I walk away with $12 billion,
says Frost as he continuously pummels Vince. Okay, Jasmine, what type is he? Says Al, as they watch the hooded man walking away with the 3 pieces of Excalibur. Jasmine scans the scanner towards the man. He's a consumption type, and it would appear he consumes energy. I honestly can't see how that's gonna be a problem for us, Al, says Jasmine, with Al looking at Alex. See, I told you, Vince will be fine. We're gonna take this guy out, and then we will, well, you know, save your boy, says Al, with Alex just nodding. Yeah, okay, we'll do it, says Alex as Vince pulls his gun out and pulls the hammer back and aims it at the hooded man. We don't know though, says Al, with Alex and Jasmine looking at him. Don't know what? We don't know why he's doing it. If we could have him side with us, we don't even know if he deserves to die, says Al, with Jasmine grabbing the gun from him. Sorry, Al, but we don't have time for that, she says as she points the gun directly at the man, with Alex remembering the conversation Vince and her had about Jasmine and understanding why they need her. Jasmine pulls the trigger, and it goes through the skull of the hooded man as his dead body hits the ground. Jasmine walks up and grabs the 3 pieces of Excalibur. Okay, that was easy, she says as she puts the 3 pieces of Excalibur in Alex's bag and gives Al back his gun. Okay, let's go save Vince, says Jasmine, with Alex not hesitating and running ahead of them towards the direction of Vince. And as the 3 of them turn around the hillside, they see Vince lying there, being pummeled by Frost, who is on top of him, as Frost delivers strike after strike into the skull of Vince. Vince is helpless to defend himself, helpless to do anything against the onslaught, and is only lying there, receiving the strikes. So Al quickly points his gun at Frost, and pulls back the hammer and pulls the trigger, and the sound alone forces Frost to display his incredible, unhuman speed and reaction. As his reflexes fully take over, he forms a shield made out of ice that protects him from the bullet. As it crashes into the shield, it knocks him off of Vince, and he quickly rolls, slamming his hand down onto the ground. And as he pushes his hand into the snow, 3 large spears erupt beneath Al, Jasmine, and Alex, with Jasmine diving to the left, tackling Alex, protecting them both from the spears. Al dives forward, barely dodging the spear targeting him. As he pulls the trigger once again, the bullet flies through the air, but only bounces off of the thick layers of ice that is covering Frost. Al continues pulling the trigger, and shot after shot, the bullets bounce off of Frost as he forms 2 blades made out of ice in his hands. He begins charging at the 3 of them. With Al quickly reloading, he looks at Jasmine. Yeah, you gotta get Alex out of here, and you need to help me out. This guy, he's a consumption type, but the consumption bullets aren't working. They're just bouncing off of him. It's almost like he's reached a whole new level. Overconsumption isn't gonna be a problem for him, says Al, with Jasmine shaking her head. No, that's not how it works. Their weaknesses are their weaknesses, period. End of story, says Jasmine, with Alex rising. No, you're wrong. Caroline. I remember Caroline telling me that she got past her weakness. Sound was no longer a weakness of hers. There's a way for genetic blessings to overcome their weaknesses. There's a way for them to make their weaknesses invalid, all and void, says Alex, with Jasmine not wanting to believe it, so she ignores the words of Alex as she pulls out her spear and expands it. She points the cables to Frost as he charges them, getting closer and closer. Jasmine pulls the trigger on the cables and spins the rod and hoists the top up, forcing the cables to create a straight line, and they connect, stabbing into the ice of Frost. And she hits a button at the bottom of the rod that should force him to overconsume. However, he just keeps charging at her and getting closer and closer. He swings the blade towards her that she has to dive out of the way. As she rolls backwards, Owl has finally reloaded and pulls the trigger once again, but it simply bounces off of Frost as he tears the cables out.
Do you really think that not listening to your little friend over there is a good idea? Do you really honestly believe that genetic blessings can't evolve? I can consume as much as I'd like. It'll never hurt me, says Frost, with Owl still pulling the trigger but it not having a single effect. Frost becomes annoyed at the bullets constantly bouncing off of his skull, and so he swings one of the blades towards Owl, and though he stands a far distance, he forces the blade to grow in length. As he adds more and more ice to the blade, it becomes long enough that by time the blade swings past Owl, it slashes his chest, forcing his chest wide open. And Frost then extends the blade out once again, stabbing Owl in the left thigh. And then Frost lets go of the blade, letting it evaporate as he forces multiple frozen tiny spikes in his hand. He flings them towards Owl, with every single one stabbing into him in multiple spread out areas upon Owl's body, with Owl falling to the ground in pain and in exhaustion due to the frozen atmosphere having its toll on all of them. Owl can only lie there and is too weak to even moan or grunt in pain, but simply lies, hoping that Jasmine is strong enough. Yet Jasmine too is frozen, though not in pain, but in fear. As Frost walks up to her, Jasmine looks at him. What's this? Have you given up? Do you surrender to me?
Says Frost, with Jasmine looking at him, not uttering a word, but only thinking to herself that she is only human, and without being able to expose the weaknesses of a genetic blessing, what hope could she possibly have of defeating them? And if they are able to reach this level of strength, was teaming up with Vince the right thing to do? However, Frost becomes bored of Jasmine's silence and forms ice around his fist as he delivers a massive right hook to the skull of Jasmine, slamming her to the ground and knocking her out. He simply looks up at Alex, who clenches the bag with the 3 pieces of Excalibur. Seeing Jasmine, Owl, and Vince all lying on the ground, incapacitated, helpless, and useless, Alex realizes that she stands truly alone, and her legs begin to tremble at the sight of Frost, who is walking towards her.
So, it would appear that you are the last one, the last obstacle whom stands in my way,
says Frost as Alex's legs begin trembling even more. She staggers back in fear, for she has no idea how she could possibly take on a genetic blessing. With Al listening and hearing the threats of Frost, hearing his footsteps get closer and closer to Alex, he tries to gather the strength he needs to stand up and tries to rise himself. However, he cannot even gather the strength to lift his head or move a finger, with Vince, too, listening to Frost, threatening Alex and slowly walking towards her.
No.
Vince thinks to himself,
No. You are not going to harm that child,
says Vince as he forces himself to rise. Slowly but surely, he begins standing on his feet, feeling the weakness in his legs and feeling his body giving out. He looks at Frost, who is now standing toe-to-toe with Alex, and Frost begins forming a small blade made out of ice in his right hand as he uses his left hand to grasp the throat of Alex. Vince sees Frost about to do the unthinkable, about to do the one thing that is truly the greatest fear of Vince. And so Vince puts everything he has into creating a force-filled ball, and it starts out small, forming in his palm, and he tries and tries to create a big enough one that he can throw to knock Frost back. But the force-filled ball is taking far too much energy, as all he can do is see Alex looking at him for help. While holding Alex in the air, grasping her throat, Frost then raises the small blade and begins moving the blade closer to her stomach, with Vince beginning to panic and losing all thought and only going into pure instinct and pure rage, finally forces the force-filled ball to form and throws it with everything he has. And the ball connects to Frost right as Frost lunges the blade towards Alex, and the ball connects, igniting an explosion, throwing Frost down to the ground, with Alex dropping, Vince ignoring his pain and ignoring the exhaustion and fatigue that the cold has brought on him, runs quickly to Alex as he kneels down before her. She is gasping for air as he sees the blade in her stomach. And as he looks at Alex,
Are you gonna die? Are you going to die?
says Vince, with Alex shaking her head, though she's in pain. She shakes her head no and puts her hand on his shoulder. No, I don't think I'm gonna die, Vince. I think I'm gonna be okay, but it does hurt.
Good. Very good,
says Vince as he forms a small force field around her. And anger continues dwelling and swelling inside of Vince. As he stands up, he glares at Frost.
Do you realize what you almost did? Do you realize what you were about to do?
says Vince, with Frost rising.
I was going to accomplish my mission,
says Frost, with Vince now becoming the embodiment of anger and fatherly protection.
You were going to take everything from me. You were going to kill the most innocent, precious thing that I hold dear,
says Vince as he becomes more angry with every word he speaks, as his hair goes from platinum blonde to a bright silver, and he covers his body in his force field. However, instead of being blue, it has a gold-like aura as Vince walks slowly and confidently towards Frost. Frost sees the change in Vince's demeanor.
What? Is this little change of appearance supposed to intimidate me?
Says Frost as he forms a large blade in his hands and lunges towards Vince, swinging it towards Vince's neck, which Vince allows to connect. And upon impact, the blade shatters when it connects and smashes against the golden force field. With the blade shattering, Frost is looking at Vince.
That's not possible,
responds Frost. However, Vince does not retort nor respond, only continues walking towards Frost, and so Frost begins forming more and more blades, swinging them and stabbing them towards Vince. However, they shatter and break every time the blades connect, and no matter how big Frost makes the swords, no matter how hard he swings them towards Vince, the blades shatter, with Frost now starting to feel fear. Vince's demeanor has not changed, and he has not broken eye contact with Frost as he just continues walking towards Frost. While the Guardian, the strange man in the gold and white temple, watches Vince's display on a pillar that he had turned into that of a TV screen. That is very interesting. I knew there was one of us out there still, but I did not think it would be this man, responds the Guardian as he watches Vince's transformation and watches the increase of power, with Vince now reaching out to Frost. Frost quickly backs away, swinging a blade at the hand of Vince, and as it connects to the wrist of Vince, the blade shatters once again, and Vince continues reaching out to Frost as he grasps Frost by the throat.
This is what you were about to do, wasn't it?
Says Vince as he raises Frost in the air and forms his force field into that of a spike at the end of his fingertips.
And you were going to insert the blade. If it hadn't been for me, you would have hit a major artery. It was only pure luck that she's still alive. And luck is not on your side,
says Vince as he ever so slowly inserts the now spiked force field at his fingertips into Frost. Frost screams and manages to rotate one of his legs with a massive block of ice, connecting it to the skull of Vince. The kick manages to release Frost from the grasp of Vince as it knocks Vince slightly back, with Frost dropping and quickly getting back on his feet.
I don't need luck. I have incredible abilities that you have yet to see,
says Frost as he puts his hands on the ground, and a large tower of ice comes crashing through the ground and launching into the sky behind him, with it being no smaller than a skyscraper, no thinner than a tower, with it reaching into the clouds. Frost quickly turns around and puts his hands on it, with him consuming the weight of the ice. He manages to pick it up and rotate it downwards towards Vince.
Well, this will probably take everything I have,
responds Vince as he puts his right leg behind him and chambers his arm into his hip, getting ready to strike the large tower of ice. And as it swings down, Frost then throws it, returning all the weight to the large tower of ice, making it as deadly as a meteor as it spirals and spears towards Vince. Vince wraps his hand in the now golden force-filled aura and punches the tip of the ice, with the ground shaking and cracking beneath his very fist. And now the tower of ice slowly begins to crack as it presses against the fist of Vince, pushing Vince's feet deeper into the ground, with it finally exploding and cracking apart. The now shattered tower crumbles into the ground, with Vince's aura beginning to crack and give out. Frost lunges once again to Vince, throwing a massive punch that he'd covered with pure solid ice as it connects to the jawline of Vince, knocking him back.
Well, looks like I'm gonna have to give you more,
says Frost as he begins absorbing all the snow and all the ice around him, and his body becomes submerged with ice as he grows in size, as he creates a large ice sculpture of himself with him in the middle.
This is no small defeat, Vince. I will brag about crushing you beneath my feet for years to come,
says Frost, with Vince looking up at the now giant ice-like creature that Frost has created.
Okay, give me your best shot,
says Vince, as Frost then punches downwards, with the fist being of tremendous size coming down to Vince. Vince puts his hands out and catches it as it presses down towards him. The size of the fist blocks out all sunlight as it becomes nothing but darkness for Vince. With Frost pressing down towards Vince, Vince struggles as his legs begin to tremble, holding up the massive pressure and weight of the fist, with the ground cracking even more, and Vince getting pressed deeper and deeper into the ground. He then musters the strength he needs to hold the fist up with one hand as he brings his other arm down and puts all his energy and all his force field into one hand.
This is where it ends for you,
says Vince as he strikes the fist, and the golden aura then travels up the fist and up the arm of Frost as it then covers the entire gigantic ice creature It begins cracking the same as the large ice tower and shatters with a massive explosion with the ground shaking. Frost begins falling, and as Frost is about to hit the ground, Vince tackles him and brings him down. Struggling to keep his eyes open, struggling to keep himself awake, Vince feels the power surge he once had fading as his silver hair returns to a platinum blonde and the golden aura morphs back into a blue aura. Frost looks at him.
You're weakened. That took everything you had, didn't it?
Says Frost, with Vince on top of him, now putting both of his hands on the throat of Frost.
Not as weak as you. And even so, any difference we have in strength or power will make no difference. All I have to do,
says Vince as he squeezes the throat of Frost, with Frost forming one more blade and inserting it into the ribcage of Vince.
is crush your windpipe,
says Vince, ignoring the blade, ignoring the pain, and engulfed in the anger he has for Frost. As he squeezes tighter and tighter, Frost's eyes begin bulging out, with blood now coming from his nose and eye sockets.
Hold on! Vince, hold on!
Begs Frost, but it is too late, as you can hear the back of his neck finally give out and snap. Frost's body becomes a pure white as his corpse lies underneath Vince. However, Vince does not stop squeezing and continues squeezing and squeezing, and finally passes out as he falls to the side of Frost, unconscious, with Jasmine lying unconscious and Alex laying in the snow with the knife still in her stomach. Al is the only one who is awake as he shouts, "Hey, Vince, Jasmine, Alex, are any of you guys awake? Are any of you guys still alive?" says Al, but he gets no response. As he forces himself to stand, he sees the three of them lying and looks towards the jet. "I can make a sled. I can make something to pull these guys out of here," says Al as he forces himself back on his feet. The air is cold and the ground is frozen, covered in snow deep enough to where it comes up to the kneecaps of Al, who trenches through it while pulling behind him a makeshift sled with Jasmine and Alex unconscious laying upon it, while carrying Vince on his shoulders. Al carries the team, who is now all unconscious, through the snow as he can only look down at his legs, focusing on not passing out due to the blood loss from his torn open chest, his slashed arms and busted legs. And while ignoring the pain, all Al can think about is getting his friends to safety. And when he looks up, he wonders how long he had been looking down, for upon looking up, he stares directly into the eyes of the chief, who stands before him, only smiling.
So, it would appear you guys are making it to the end,
says the chief, with Al not knowing what this means nor caring. He drops the ropes to the makeshift sled and throws Vince off his shoulders to the side as he reaches behind him and pulls his revolver out from his belt and pulls the hammer back, pointing it at the chief. The chief's smile only grows with Owl glaring into the eyes of the chief.
Well, Owl, do you actually think you're gonna fight me? Do you believe that's a good idea?
Says the chief, with Owl not responding nor caring to. He is fully aware of the chief's power, the fact that he can take out even the likes of Vince and destroy buildings and cities with his bare hands. But what other choice does Owl possibly have? And so, Owl pulls the trigger with the hammer flying forward and the gun going off, with the bullet flying towards the chief. It is time for Owl to either die or win by some miracle. And that is Genetic Blessings Part 2, Chapter 4, and I will be continuing it in Genetic Blessings Part 2, Chapter 5. Hopefully it won't take me as long to put out as it did this one. It seems like it's taking me longer and longer to make videos, and I apologize for that, and hopefully this chaotic life that we all live slows down at some point in 2022, and I can start putting out videos more often. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for listening for this long, if you have listened for this long. And do consider hitting the like and subscribe button, maybe even sharing if it reaches your standards. So yeah, don't get by meteor. Take care of yourselves and bye.